Welcome back to Sedlak Off-Road School. Today with another adventure bike review, and we're putting the Aprilia Tuareg up against the Yamaha Tenere to see which one is the better bike when it comes to midweight adventure bikes. So as with all our adventure bike reviews, this is an off-road review, right? We took both bikes off-road. We wanted to see how do they compare to each other when you're riding some more technical, some tricky terrain. Both bikes come in at 450 pounds, so they're level there, equal weight. So then it really comes down to sort of like the engine characteristics, suspension setup, and just overall feel of the chassis to see which bike suits which rider a little bit better. If you want to see the specific, more detailed reviews of each bike, check out the links above here, the Tuareg review, the Tenere review today. I have professional rally racer Edgar Cota with me. So both of us rode both bikes through the same type of terrain, and you will see that in some of the clips. And we're just going to give you our opinion. You can see I'm a little bit taller, Edgar a little bit shorter, so statue a little bit different. Riding level, we're both professional riders, so we ride this type of terrain a lot. And with that, I will just give it over to Edgar so he can give you his impression of both of the different bikes, and we'll see what he has to say.
For me, the biggest difference is the seat height on the Aprilia. Having shorter legs, it's easier to reach the ground when we come to the stop, or even just riding single trails, right? Going over rocks, going over some deep ruts, it's a lot easier, it gives you more confidence. Being lower to the ground, like I said, me having shorter legs, that's my biggest thing.
Edgar brings up an excellent point. That was one of the first things I noticed as well, just the lower seat height of the Aprilia, which even as a taller rider is nice. I'm 6 foot tall and have quite long legs for a dirt bike rider, and even I have to tippy toe on the Tenere. So being able to just get your foot down, or both feet down, sit comfortably and kind of read the terrain in some of the sections where you have to stop is definitely a big plus on the side of the Aprilia. On the engine side, you're looking at 660cc and 80 horsepower on the Aprilia. And as we said in our review of that bike, a very torquey engine. The Tenere with 690cc, 72 horsepower, so a little bit lower on the horsepower. And overall, when you're riding on the trails, you can feel that it's a little bit smoother. Definitely that power curve, especially off the bottom, not as torquey, not as hard hitting as the Aprilia is. So besides the seat height, that was the biggest thing as far as performance that jumped out to me, was just how hard hitting the Aprilia is compared to the Tenere off the bottom.
With the Aprilia having a little bit more horsepower, you can feel it, right? You can really feel it on first and second gear, really aggressive on the bike. And then on the Tenere, it's a lot more forgiving, especially on the first two gears. It's very easy to manipulate, it's very easy to ride along the trail. So it all depends on the rider, right? If you are a rider that likes a bit more of a smoother bike, a lot more consistent, then definitely Tenere will help you. But if you are a rider that likes a little bit more power, a little bit more aggressive, the Aprilia is the way to go.
On the suspension side, there was nothing really standing out for one bike or the other. As we mentioned in the beginning of the video, both bikes pretty much come in at the same weight. And if you've seen our review of each individual bike, we talked about the suspension in general just being a little plush. For these adventure bikes, their stand-up setups, they're always on the softer side, not necessarily set up for hardcore off-road riding. So for this video, putting up the Tenere against the Tuareg, there was nothing really that put one bike above the other. Both are very off-road capable. For standard setups, as you can see in some of these clips, they handle that terrain just fine. So in that point, they're pretty equal. So like I said in the beginning of the video, we really wanted to see what these two bikes are like off-road when you compare them to each other one-on-one. And to me, riding the Aprilia just felt a little bit more like a street bike compared to the Tenere. It carries its weight a little bit lower, which makes it nice and nimble, easy to handle. but I just kind of like the characteristic of the Tenere, which feels a little bit more like a off-road enduro type bike when you ride it.
So some of you might be wondering what I mean saying that the Aprilia feels more like a street bike compared to the Yamaha. And the easiest way for me to explain it is that when riding the Aprilia, I felt like I was sitting in the bike more compared to the Tenere, where it definitely felt like you're on top of the bike a little bit more. So the Tenere, much more of a traditional sort of like enduro dirt bike feel to it, which for me as a rider coming from that background made it very comfortable. I was able to find my body position and use that leverage to move the bike around, especially on sections like this, like these little bit faster dirt roads, gravel roads. I felt like the front end on the Aprilia was just pushing a little bit more. Sections like right here when you're leaning the bike in, I just always had a harder time to find that comfort and really lean the bike over, which came a lot easier to me on the Yamaha. Edgar didn't have that same issue. He's riding a Tuareg in this clip right now, and you can tell he's very comfortable. He's moving the bike around, he's leaning in. So it was a really good example for us to see that a lot of these things are sometimes just rider preference. On the front brake, both bikes come equipped with Brembo components. The main difference being the Tuareg coming with slightly bigger discs. So you're looking at 300mm rotors in the front on the Aprilia versus the 282mm rotors on the Tenere. Obviously, a little bit of a difference in braking power. So the Tuareg very strong on the front brake, which is nice in faster sections or when you have a lot of traction. On the road, you can feel the difference a little bit more. Definitely nice there. Little bit more difficult in these really slippery conditions as we're looking at this downhill right here. Easy to just kind of over brake on the front, lock up a little bit. So the aggressive front brake on the Tuareg, definitely something that takes a little bit getting used to.
So as we said in the beginning, the weight is the same in both bikes. The one part where they really separate is the fuel tank. An extra half a gallon of fuel in the Tuareg. So if you're planning on really going off the beaten path, going out there, not having access to gas stations or any sort of that stuff, having an extra half a gallon is always nice. If you look at the official numbers of both manufacturers, as far as fuel consumption, they're supposed to be about the same. Obviously, once you go off-road, you ride more sand, you ride some deeper terrain, that changes a little bit. So just having an extra half a gallon is definitely not a bad thing. Okay, so now the hard-hitting question: which bike do we like better? Which felt better today? And I will let Edgar answer this one first.
For me, it's the Aprilia, just because of the seat height, right? I really enjoy putting both of my feet down on the ground. It gives me that extra confidence. And a plus side is the engine. Having such a strong engine, such a strong first and second gear, that's what I'm used to. Coming from my background, rally racing, my bikes being a little bit more on the faster side, I just feel right at home. So for me, definitely the Aprilia.
Like I said earlier, the Tenere is my bike. It's also my winner today. I just feel really comfortable on that bike. I felt I was losing the front end on the Aprilia a lot more. Coming down the hills, like I said, the front brake felt a little aggressive. I just didn't like the feel of the front end coming down into some of the rain rods. The power I liked. Just like Edgar said, having a little bit more power off the bottom is definitely a nice thing, especially when you make a mistake. The bike can really pull you out of these situations. But for me, being a taller rider, seat height, not that big of an issue. I just really like the ergonomics of the Tenere, how it feels, especially once you get into some bumpy stuff. So 1-1. We have one rider on the Aprilia, one rider on the Tenere, and I think we'll just leave it at that. Right, Edgar's gonna ride home on the Aprilia, I'm gonna ride home on the Tenere. So you can tell the sun is setting. That was a long day on the bikes. We put in a lot of miles, a lot of hours riding, reviewing both of them. As always, if you like this type of content, please like and subscribe. We have a lot of cool videos coming up. Make sure to check out some of these videos. We have a review or an insight into how Edgar built his rally bike, his Gasgas 450.